Welcome back to the Gentleman's Gazette. In today's video, we'll be taking a look at things that have a huge price tag. But when it comes down to it, well, we think they suck. I'm sure we're not alone in recognizing the thrill of expensive products and services. Whether you want to experience something expensive for the iconic status it has, or because it's supposed to be of a high quality level, there's no denying that the idea of making a splashy purchase is exhilarating. But then, you know, I'm a romantic at heart. Expensive thing, I look at thee with wonder, joy, and love. 'Tis as if my soul's aloft on wings of gentle dove. The price tag of my heartstrings continuously plucks. 'Tis a shame to recognize how much thou truly sucks. For all the fun and games I have in Kyle's Poetry Corner, my aim there was to illustrate the crushing feeling of realizing that your high-priced expenditure does not meet your expectations. Typically because the expensive thing is hyped up in the first place, and the reality is hugely disappointing. Now, we've actually looked at things the other way around previously on this channel, with 10 inexpensive things that are of great value for the money here, and a further 9 items of incredible value in this follow-up video. Today we'll be looking at not only expensive products, but also a few generally expensive items you can buy. And we even have an expensive service on the list too. Before we get started, just a little side note. When we say expensive things, we're not talking about unrealistically expensive things, such as gold-plated light switches and toilets. That level of expenditure is just not something that we're used to on an everyday level. But hey, if that sounds like your everyday, we're always free to stop over for dinner. Let's get started with item number 1, Louis Vuitton duffel bag. Ah yes, the infamous Louis Vuitton duffel bag. Perhaps this item isn't a surprise if you're a long-time viewer and you've seen Raphael's in-depth review. But if you haven't found it yet, you can check it out here to find out even more about why it made this list. Ultimately, we can't justify the asking price of these bags. We bought the Keepall 55 in 2019 for $1,850. And in 2022, the same bag is now over $2,500. Keeping in mind, the bag looks exactly the same as to what we had in hand about 3 years ago. It seems like a particularly steep increase in the price, but the level of quality, or lack of quality, remains the same. Even though you're expected to pay a luxury price, you really aren't receiving anything of high quality, as the main body of a bag is a simple canvas and is coated in a plastic or of some kind of vinyl variety. Yes, that is the same method of manufacturing you can find on this duffel bag that we found at Walmart, which, as you can see, is going for the Louis Vuitton look at a fraction of the price. We're not necessarily saying that you should buy a plastic-coated duffel bag, but if you care more about having a bag that looks like a Louis Vuitton, we just wanted to let you know that this is pretty much the same quality level that you can expect. Plus, you get to save a lot of money, which you can put towards actually traveling somewhere with it. Overall, if you want a reliable, high-quality weekender bag, take a look at Raphael's favorite leather duffel in this video. Number 2. First class travel most of the time. There's an unsaid rule that first class travel should be just that, especially considering the price you end up paying for it. Unfortunately, not all first class travel lives up to its name. You can easily find many different travel review channels on YouTube that provide in-depth experiences of first class accommodations on board and other travel options. All this to say, we're certainly not claiming to be at the same level of these channels, but we do enjoy traveling first class whenever possible, and have a range of experiences on our team. For many, first class travel should be a luxurious and relaxing experience, perhaps even evoking the golden age of travel, where the journey was just as important as the destination. Whether it's the ability to skip the line, gain access to a different section of the vehicle, or enjoy any host of added features. First class should be about paying the travel provider to go the extra mile. Unfortunately, it's more common to experience first class prices with hardly any step up in quality of service. For example, take this train operator in the UK. Here you can see the cost of taking a standard fare return journey is £34.50, and the same trip in first class accommodation is £51.80. So what do you get for the extra money? Well, here's what to expect if you're traveling in standard class. And here's first class. That's slightly fewer seats, a table, and a little cloth antimacassar stuck on the seat with Velcro. Woo! Although those prices might seem negligible at first, you're actually paying 50% more than the standard class ticket for traveling in the first class section. But it sure doesn't feel like a 50% increase in what you're getting. Of course, this is just one example, and I'm sure you've seen other similar situations where there's a huge jump in standard to first class travel, and you wonder, what am I actually getting for the extra money? That being said, not all first class travel is made the same, so it's always worth checking reviews from other travelers to see what you're getting for the price, because no matter what class of travel you take, you still need to check if TSA will let your lobster on board. Wait, what? Number 3, top shelf liquor. After that disappointing experience in first class, some might want to drown their sorrows in an expensive alcoholic beverage, because a $200 bottle of wine has got to be so much more high quality than a cheaper bottle, right? In our experience, this is rarely the case. We know that there are a lot of nuances and a whole industry behind the art of wine tasting, but it's also been proven that the best wine is always the one that you like, regardless of its price tag. This is applicable to premium alcohol in general, as wine certainly isn't alone in this category, with other beverages like vodka, gin, rum, and whiskey. They are all available at premium prices. It's also worth mentioning that within these groups, there's going to be some outliers, where you truly get something unique and special for a bigger upfront price. But the reality is you shouldn't feel like you need to spend a fortune on a particular alcoholic beverage, just for the cachet of having said beverage on hand. If the drink you choose is delicious, then both you and whoever you choose to share your drink with should enjoy it, assuming you actually want to share your favorite drink. Up next, we just have to mention fast fashion. Yes, I'm being serious. Fast fashion might seem like a strange contender for today's list, because the whole point of fast fashion is that it's offered at a very low sticker price. The problem is that it's all just a ruse. Brands that promote fast fashion want you to buy something at a low price and replace it often, where quality brands want you to purchase something at a fair price and wear it repeatedly. This is part of the ongoing discussion within the world of fashion, and something that we've commented on before in this video. Essentially, statistics show that the average fast fashion piece is typically worn 1 or 2 times before being thrown away, with many people having clothes in their closet with the tag still on, but are never worn. So a t-shirt that costs $10 feels cheap in the moment, but if it's only worn once, you've paid $10 per wear, whereas a t-shirt that costs $40 and is worn every week for a whole year amounts to just 77 cents per wear. Plus, if you have to keep buying those $10 t-shirts, the cost obviously adds up. Pretty astounding, right? Preston will guide you through the intricacies of the cost per wear equation in this video, so you can avoid the fast fashion trap and get the best bang for your buck. Number 5, designer watches. I'm going to take a cue from Nathan for the next item on our list and mention watches made by clothing brands, just to dispel any concern. We're not talking about luxury watches from reputable brands that have a long history of watchmaking. Those are typically the type of brands and timepieces we prefer to talk about in our full-length videos. Generally speaking though, most high-end clothing designers will have at least 1 or 2 watches available in their collection, like Gucci, Burberry, or Michael Kors. These are all examples of brands that offer expensive timepieces that often fall short of the quality we'd hope for. I should actually back up a little and make a correction. Although I say these watches are made by clothing brands, the reality is they're made for the brands. You see, the majority of these watches are made with low-quality materials and a large-scale production line and a generic factory. So even that little Armani logo on the watch might get some form of status recognition. It doesn't actually mean it's a mark of quality craftsmanship. If we stick with Armani, you could get this dive watch for $275, which, let's face it, is heavily inspired by the Rolex Submariner. Or you could take our suggestion from this video, where for $69.99 you could purchase the Casio Duro, a dive watch made by a company with many years of reputable watchmaking. And this watch boasts twice the amount of dive capability, which for a dive watch is kind of essential. Not only that, but the Casio also states that it's a battery-operated watch, which is to be expected at this price point. At $275, the Armani states that it's a 3-hand movement, which should mean that it's a quartz watch too. But at this price, there's a distinct lack of clarity, and that's just disappointing. Number 6, fancy branded luggage. Sticking with the theme of branded items like the Armani watch, we can also look toward the luggage offered by these fashion brands. We've separated this item from the Louis Vuitton duffel bag mentioned earlier for good reason. You see, Louis Vuitton actually started out as a luggage maker, with luggage being a core part of their brand since the beginning. The difference with this type of branded luggage is that it's made from brands that have no history of luggage manufacture. They simply get luggage items made at a low cost to the brand, slap their logo on the finished product, and charge a premium price for it. There are so many brands that do this that it'd be impossible to name them all in one video, but you can consider brands like Abercrombie & Fitch, DKNY, and Gucci, which is unfortunate, as Gucci was considered a high-quality luggage maker in the 1950s and 60s, as shown in the film The Talented Mr. Ripley. Overall, if you're in the market for reliable luggage, stick to the brands that know what they're doing, and let the fashion houses take care of clothing. Number 7, designer accessories. As a follow-on from designer luggage, we'd also like to take a minute to talk about designer accessories, specifically the type of accessories that aren't part of the designer's core range. Think of things like Burberry belts, wallets from Levi's, and cufflinks from Gucci. These are all examples of items that have been manufactured by brands that have a high standing of making a certain type of product. So it just feels odd when they present this type of unusual adjacency in the form of misfitting accessories. It's important to mention that the brands that do this may actually not be all that bad. It's just that these often logo-based accessories are usually a far cry from what you'd expect them to be, therefore tarnishing the overall appearance of said brand. In order to avoid disappointment when it comes to luxury accessories, we'd suggest you shift the thinking by looking at quality accessories instead. This is something we enjoy discussing in greater depth in our cheap versus expensive series, where you can see what really goes into making the price difference. Ultimately, you need to be getting the biggest return on your investment, and branded accessories are rarely the way to go. Number 8. Down jackets. For our last item, we turn to a winter coat must-have that in recent years has grown in popularity: down or puffer jackets. There's a lot to like about puffer jackets, so much so that I go in depth in our video on them, which you can find here. Down jackets can be great, as they can be warm, light, flexible options for deep winter jackets. But for many of the puffer jackets out there, the down quality really isn't that great. Not only that, but manufacturers usually take great care to not explain anything about down quality, so you end up feeling like you've got something great, when the reality is it's mediocre at best. What a lot of people don't know is that 100% down is both the lightest and the warmest insulator you can get for a puffer jacket, with down referring to the fluffy, soft, insulating layer of feathers found below a bird's tougher exterior feathers. Some brands will mix down with these outer feathers, which aren't as insulating. This results in a coat that looks right and feels good when handled, but simply doesn't measure up when it comes to actually keeping you warm. The alternative is a down jacket that isn't actually down-filled. Instead, a synthetic filling is used that just won't breathe well. In either of these situations, you could easily pay hundreds of dollars for a luxury coat that should keep you warm, but the reality is you get left out in the cold. At the end of our list of super priced things that simply don't cut the mustard, we want to throw the question out to you. Do you agree with our picks? Or are there any examples where you think we might have been a little extreme with our judgment? In any case, let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to tell us about any examples of things that you found that weren't worth it either. Today I'm wearing a green quilted jacket with a blue and white striped button-down shirt, off-white jeans, and brown chukka boots with Fort Belvedere socks. Check out the Fort Belvedere shop here for socks like these.